the combination of a ketogenic diet and intermittent fasting, which I think everyone can do, really is what pushed me over the edge. I got to tell you, the rest of my weight just melted off. It was like magic.
This episode is brought to you by Basic Keto Box. Basic Keto Box is a premium subscription box for Keto Dieters. It offers a wide variety of keto-friendly snacks delivered right to your door. Not only that, with your subscription box, you also get a 30-day meal plan that includes breakfast, lunch, and dinner, complete with macronutrients in every meal. We have an exclusive deal just for Ketones and Coffee podcast listeners. Receive an extra 20% off with your first month subscription. Head on over to basicketobox.ca to subscribe today. Hey guys, welcome to the Ketones and Coffee podcast, where I bring in guests to discuss their own personal experience with a ketogenic diet. Our first guest was your typical low-fat yo-yo dieter. For years, she would try different types of diet, but would still gain the weight back, until she found keto. She's now been on the keto diet for 2 years, and has since lost over 60 pounds. How's it going?
Hey, Lawrence. Okay, can you see me?
Yeah, I could see you. First of all, how is it like? What is it like in Chicago right now?
It's cold.
Oh,
Hey. Yeah, it's about 40 degrees, maybe a little less. What about where you are? You're in Canada?
actually, it warmed up. It warmed up this week. It's
Uh-huh.
about 10 degrees right now. Sunny.
Oh my God,
So,
that's warm.
it is it?
I'm
uh,
laughing because it's about 40 here, so.
I'm excited to talk to you about this, and I'm so glad you agreed to come on to share your story. And
Yeah, I mean I do understand the struggle that people are going through because I have gone through quite a bit over the
mhm.
past decades. And there's so much misinformation out there.
Yeah,
I think this is a great idea. So thanks for
yeah.
starting this podcast.
Yeah, actually, this is my very first one.
Wow.
And but I've been, talking to my ambassadors. So, just a background story. I have a subscription box business that
Hmm.
distributes snacks on a monthly
Really?
basis, keto-friendly snacks,
Okay, I
and
was gonna ask.
yeah, and I've only been in keto for maybe almost a year now,
Okay.
and I'd like to learn more about people's experiences. And I've
Hmm.
done my research, I've followed some keto influencers, but I really want to hear stories from real people. So that's why I started this. And learning stories from people inspires me to do what I do. And,
Hmm.
sharing great stories to hopefully inspire someone. And I know you
Yeah.
echo this, even if it's one person that we could help, it's still worth it.
I
And,
totally agree. Totally agree. That's actually kind of how I found keto. Was someone had shared with me that their brother was overweight and diagnosed as pre-diabetic, and he had been on keto for about a year,
mhm.
completely lost all his weight and reversed his pre-diabetes. And then his
Wow.
two sons, who were also overweight, started eating that way, and they also both lost weight.
So this is before you're on keto. So
Hmm.
you know of keto before you even tried it. That's great.
If you want to go back in time, I think I was a typical yo-yo dieter, like
Hmm.
so many people out there, eating low fat. I've had it ingrained in my brain that eating fat makes you fat, right? And
Yeah, right.
logically, without looking at actual science, you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So
Hmm.
I'm going to eat low fat. But when you do that, it takes a lot of the flavor out of food. And what food manufacturers do is they replace that with sugar or a carbohydrate.
Exactly.
So you
Exactly.
end up eating high carb, even though that may not be your intention.
Hmm.
And what happens is because of your calorie restriction, you end up losing weight initially. You do.
Yep.
However, it is unsustainable. And I want to say something like 98% of people that eat that way fail. And I was one of them. I did Weight Watchers, I did Nutrisystem, Jenny Craig. I even tried Atkins, about 10 years ago, and none of them worked for me. Uh, I would lose the weight, but I gain it back. And it was just over and over. And honestly, my weight kept going up and up and up with every time I went through that cycle. Um, I was skeptical when I heard about keto, to be honest with you, because I kind of equated that to be very much like Atkins. And I only tried Atkins, I want to say, for a couple of weeks, and I miserably failed. I don't really, going back in time, I think knowing what I know now, I wasn't really aware that carbohydrate addiction was a thing.
Right.
And after being on Atkins, and I want to say the limit on Atkins was about 17 grams of carbs, which is very, very few. That's what I remember. Um, I literally pulled into a fast food restaurant and got the biggest size chocolate shake they had,
Oh
and
my
I sucked
goodness.
the whole thing down. And I was like, okay, this diet doesn't work for me, and I never went back. So yeah, so I assumed keto is similar. But you're allowed to have a little bit more carbs. I think you can go between 30 grams and 50. So it's still very low
Hmm.
comparatively, but it's a little bit more than what Atkins allowed.
Yeah.
Um, and then there's also another difference. With Atkins, I just jumped in and started doing it right away. And with keto, because of my skepticism, I really did a lot of research up front. So I think I told you, I'm going on almost 2 years of keto now.
Yep.
It'll be 2 years for me in January. And I want to say that whole first month was really just trying to learn about the diet, learn about the food, do as much research as I could. I did try to start making meals, but I didn't want to force myself to just jump in. I kind of
Hmm.
eased into it that first month. And I lost a lot of weight right away. It was like, I think I dropped about 10 pounds.
Hmm.
And I got to say, I was still skeptical. I was still scared of eating fat. I got
Right.
to tell you, I was, with my up and down weight, it really was, I was brainwashed. That's the only way, now that
Yes.
I'm out of it, I can say, after decades of being told to eat low fat and
Right.
this is how you lose weight,
Hmm.
but anyway, after I lost that initial weight, I kind of stalled. And I think it was because I was still a little scared inside of just going full force. But I continued to do some more research. And I actually have a couple of books that I'd like to share. I have no affiliation with these authors or their books, but
Please.
yeah, so they actually really helped me, and I think they would really help somebody. And I brought them here because to show you. This is the one that really convinced me. Okay, so, and it's all dirty and used, right? Simply Keto by Suzanne Ryan. Okay, so she's a blogger. She also has some pretty amazing stories to tell. So when you talk about like sharing stories of other people, and she has actually similar photos, kind of like what I shared of you of her. I don't know if I can show you, but this is a after photo of her. Okay, and then her before pictures are similar to mine. I want to see if I can find a big one, but I don't know. It's hard to see, maybe. That's
Wow.
a before of
Wow.
her.
She
I think
looks
she might even have some
amazing
other.
in the after
So,
photo, and she looks
oh, yeah.
super. She looks
I,
10 years younger. And
oh my God.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't
It's
know how
just
old she is,
amazing.
but yeah. I mean, maybe 40s. She also has a blog. I don't really follow her blog, but I got to tell you, this book, her story on there is very inspiring, and I completely related to everything she talked about. And the reason why I bought this book wasn't because of that. It was because I needed to learn how to eat
Hmm.
a keto diet. I needed to learn how to cook and make this food because it's not commercially available now. Some foods are, and it sounds like you're getting into that too. But this one really I recommend to anybody. When I got this book, I went through, and you can see I have all these papers in here. These are the recipes I've printed out and collected over the past couple of years of things I've tried, and the ones I like, I keep.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is my like kind of like my keto Bible.
Hmm.
Um, so anyway, getting into that kind of learning curve, I did stall. I want to say after I lost about 15 pounds, I just kind of stayed, and I was eating this diet. I was following keto, and I couldn't understand why. So I had heard actually on I don't know, somewhere on social, that intermittent fasting sometimes can help you get out of a plateau. And through doing a
Interesting.
little bit. Yeah, I gotta tell you, this completely was the key for me. I mean, and people may have different journeys. I found he's actually a doctor, nephrologist, and an author, and he actually still treats patients, named Dr. Jason Fung. And he published a book called, originally his first book, I think, was The Diabetes Code. And then he published a book called The Obesity Code, which is the next book that I recommend anyone trying to start this. This explains the science about how we gain weight and lose weight. And learning this gave me everything else I needed to know to be successful. So what I learned from Jason Fung, and he also has a ton of free content on YouTube. He's a great public speaker. He explains things in layman's terms, but at the end of the day, the science behind it is really controlling your insulin levels. So fortunately for me, I think you saw how overweight I was. I didn't develop any, I wasn't pre-diabetic. I was probably heading that way. But Jason Fung figured out, and this is not new science, he just had to dig in. The patients he was treating were not getting better. They were just getting sicker and sicker. And he was getting really frustrated with medicine. He was doing everything that he learned in medical school, and he wasn't helping people. So he did his own research and discovered that really the key is insulin. Control your insulin. Whenever we eat food, our body releases insulin, whether it's low carb, high carb, meat, or a candy bar.
Right.
Our body produces and releases insulin. So your body reacts differently to different types of foods. And this is something nobody talks about. If you eat high sugar, high carbohydrate food, you produce more. And if you eat more often every day, your body constantly is releasing insulin. So insulin is the hormone that tells your body to store fat. It's also the hormone that allows your body to burn fat. And one of the things that he starts out by saying in this book that really catches you is, I can make you fat and I can make you thin. And that, like, just that statement alone is like, just kind of gets you. And you're like, okay, I want to learn about this. I was glued to his book. I couldn't put it down. I think I've watched every single one of his videos on YouTube. So I actually started incorporating intermittent fasting into my life. So the combination of a ketogenic diet and intermittent fasting, which I think everyone can do, really is what pushed me over the edge. I got to tell you, the rest of my weight just melted off. It was like magic. And all I really did to do this was skip eating breakfast. I went from 3 meals,
Right.
or actually probably 4 meals a day, down to 2.
Mhm.
And yeah, it was just amazing how the transformation happened after that point. So it was,
So you were eating so you would have lunch at around noon, and then what time's your dinner?
so I would eat between about 6 and 7 p.m. dinner. So I tried to stick to a 16-8 fast. So 16 hours of fasting, and your sleep counts as fasting. So, nothing. And then just really skipping breakfast, eating lunch between, like, maybe, so it would be, if it's 16-8,
Yeah.
noon and 8 p.m. I personally found it very easy to just cut out eating that breakfast meal, or you can think about it as pushing breakfast back to about noon. Now, I got to tell you, as I've gone, I did incorporate longer fasts. So once or twice a month, I try to do at least a 48-hour fast.
Wow.
I've learned to trust my body. Yeah. So another thing about fasting, after you make it through the first day, 24 hours, there's another hormone in your body called ghrelin. Ghrelin makes you feel like you're hungry. Your body is used to eating at certain periods of time. When your body gets used to not eating at a certain time, such as 8 a.m. for breakfast, your body stops releasing that hormone. So it says, oh, okay, like I know not to expect food right now. You aren't hungry. I got to tell you, doing a 48-hour, and I have done 72 hours too. the first day is the hardest day. You do feel hunger pangs about the same time that you are used to eating. But after that, it goes away. The second day is the easiest day, which is why sometimes I will even go 3 days. The longest I've ever done is 5 days. It's a
Hmm.
lot more challenging. Um, but I got to tell you, incorporating fasting into my life with the keto diet completely is what changed my life. So that was my Dr. Jason Fung book. And then, if it's okay with you, I want to tell you about two more that are, it's actually part of the story. So,
Go for it.
why, okay, so why do governments, doctors push this low fat way of eating, right? Like, that's part of the story. And once I discovered all of these things, I felt betrayed and lied to because literally I struggled with my weight for decades.
Yep.
And now that I found the answer and the way what I believe humans should be eating, what is the proper human diet? Like that is debatable, but now I know the answer for myself. Um, how did we get here? So this book, I have to tell you, written The Big Fat Surprise by Nina, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing your last name, Treacles.
Hmm.
She was a journalist and she started writing about restaurants, being a food critic. And what she discovered was that she would go into these high profile restaurants around Manhattan, and the food that she would eat was extremely high fat and it tasted amazing. And she was even scared of eating that way. But then when she was looking, like if it was a French restaurant, well, in France, they don't have the same obesity diabetic that we have here in, North America. I'm assuming Canada is the same as the
Right.
United
Hmm.
States. We're at about 40% obesity at this point, and it's just spiraling out of control. Um, she started doing her own digging, being a journalist, and it goes all the way back to the 1950s, maybe, when this started with a man named Ansel Keys, who developed what he called the heart health hypothesis, which kind of demonized cholesterol. Well, his studies were flawed, and he picked and chose what data he had collected to try to prove that eating a high cholesterol diet led to heart disease. What he never took into account was a lot of the people that developed heart disease and had heart attacks were also smokers. So back then, smoking was very common. And doctors even endorsed cigarette brands back then. So he convinced a lot of high profile scientists and governments and pushed his low fat way of eating, you know, across the industry. And lo and behold, people fell into place. There's a lot more to it. This is an amazing book. If anyone is not convinced as to what happened and why low fat diets, even today in 2020, are
Exactly.
by doctors, it's insane. So,
Yeah.
anyway, she really tears stuff apart, and she is now a proponent for trying to get government nutritional guidelines changed. I recommend her if you want to follow her on Twitter, and I think she has a couple of videos on YouTube as well. She's pushing to get the nutritional guidelines changed in the United States, and she keeps hitting brick walls. It's a big step, but she's trying, and at least she's raising awareness. And then the other thing I wanted to add to this was, the keto diet and even fasting is more than just about weight loss. It really is about regaining your health. In my family, my father has Alzheimer's and his father had Alzheimer's. So I'm suffering through that, like a lot of people are with their families, dealing with my father. And I was also, I've always had in the back of my head, is this going to be my fate? Is this what's going to happen to me? Well, I had come across some more research. I'm still researching even 2 years in. People were starting to call Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes. And diabetes is when your body
Interesting.
becomes, yeah, I'm telling you, this is like a big rabbit hole. Um, diabetes is when your body becomes resistant to insulin. So it produces more and more and more. And eventually, when you reach a certain point, doctors consider it diabetes. Well, what they've recently discovered is that your brain can process insulin on its own, separate from the rest of your body, and they think that Alzheimer's is directly connected to insulin resistance. So after finding this, and I don't think this is the only book out there now, but this is written by Amy Berger. Now, she has a good story herself, too. This is called The Alzheimer's Antidote. She discovered a keto diet, but then also read into, there may be a connection between what is now called type 3 diabetes, which is your brain, and Alzheimer's. So what is entirely possible, and I think they're just doing research now, is the connection between Alzheimer's and high carb way of eating and your brain. So basically following the ketogenic diet, which she talks about in this book as well, may very well prevent people from developing Alzheimer's. And, my father actually eats this way right now. He was pretty far down the road, but his condition hasn't gotten worse. We haven't really noticed any improvement in him. But I think the thinking is the sooner you can start eating this way, the more likely you are to not develop Alzheimer's to begin with. So prevention is really key.
That's so interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And how insulin is causing all of these inflammation in our body, but yet it's so simple and so easy. I love how you phrase it in your bio on your Twitter. You said, eat real foods, unprocessed foods. It's simple.
True.
But why are people still doing it? Why are people still doing it? My biggest concern is, why can't people be more proactive about this? Why are they not informed? Are they waiting for that turning point in their life where they get diagnosed with a disease and now they don't want to take, maybe that prescribed medicine you don't want to take? For me, while I'm listening to your story, it looks like you were concerned if this is your path, because you've seen it with your family members.
Yes,
and
I have.
How do we become more proactive? How do I communicate this? See, I have my father. He's type 2 diabetic, and their way of life just makes it impossible for them to make that switch. What do I tell them? Help me out here.
Okay, that's actually a very good point, and I was going to bring this up too. My mother-in-law is a type 2 diabetic, and believe it or not, her dog is also diabetic. When I discovered this, okay, so going back to Jason Fung, he can actually reverse type 2 diabetes, and he's not the only doctor doing it now. There are several practices that literally reverse type 2 diabetes through diet. Dr. Jason Fung can reverse diabetes and get people off of their insulin in an average time of about 6 weeks, regardless of how long they've been on insulin, taking insulin. And he said some of his patients have been on insulin for 20 years, and he can get them off that quickly. That's how much this diet can help people. So going back to what can we do? I have the same issue with my mother-in-law, who is type 2 diabetic. I got all excited finding this information because I know that it's not readily available. It's hard to find, right? So I sent her the diabetes code by Dr. Jason Fung, because she had said something to the family about how her eyesight is getting poorer. She's having to increase her insulin and she's getting depressed, right? So I'm like, you know what? Here's the answer for you. I found this, this is like a gold mine. This is what you can do. You can get your health back. She's overweight, declining health. And I thought she would jump on it, but she won't change. She still eats, she bakes cakes, cookies. She gives her dog these dog treats that are made out of flour and sugar. And this is why her dog is diabetic. She hasn't been open to it. Now, I have not been successful in trying to get her to change, but I gotta tell you, I kind of feel like you can, it's your responsibility maybe to let people know that this path exists. And if they're scared of doing it on their own, they don't have to, because there are doctors out there that will work with them. And I know she had said she was scared. She doesn't want to give up going to her doctor. But the mindset with traditional medicine is, that you treat it with insulin injections. And over time, you're going to get worse and you just increase your dose and then you just manage it. No one ever talks about changing your diet. I get so frustrated, but I have not been successful getting her to go down this path either. That doesn't mean she won't. I don't push it because I feel like if I do, it's going to just become more of a battle. I just want to try to leave the breadcrumbs there. And I feel for you because I'm in a very similar situation in my family.
Yeah.
Um, I there have been so many people that have been helped with this. This only thing that we can really do is give them the information and get this out there. And, maybe my mother-in-law and, your father, they haven't necessarily hit what is their bottom yet, you know?
Yeah. Something that
May
scares them.
Yeah, maybe something will get them to
Yep.
change. Diabetics end up over time losing their toes.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them have their legs amputated.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not a good path that they're headed down. And I don't know what,
Yep.
is this the one thing other than sharing stories and information.
Yeah, and if they could take a couple pills and still eat the food they love, then
Yeah.
maybe that's the life they want to live, right?
Hmm.
Maybe that's the problem there, where it's the awareness part of it, it's the mindset, and willingness to make a change. And
Hmm.
maybe it's the doctors, maybe it's the government, maybe whoever invented the food pyramid needs to change it,
Oh,
right? So
they do. Here's my theory about that, about why there's resistance. Because in my mind, there's so much science out there, and the science is so clear and it's proven, right? To me, it's not debatable. Um, Unfortunately, I believe when we have governments recommending foods and you have lobbyists from the food industry, pharmaceutical industry, multi-billion dollar industries here, okay, that if they if they kind of backed down, they are going to stand to lose billions and billions of dollars. So I got to tell you, I'm not a huge conspiracy theory person, which I think is why I read that book,
mhm,
Big Fat Surprise. Like,
mhm,
I wanted to find out what happened. Like, why did we get to where we are today? And I got to tell you, it's processed food. The food industry, they make so much money. They keep us addicted to sugar. I swear, and carbohydrates. Um, and the pharmaceutical industry, think about how much money they make off of insulin alone. Insulin, heart medication, statins. These things degrade your body and your internal organs when you're on them long term. But they're still raking in the cash. So they're incentivized to keep you alive, but
mhm.
as sick as possible for
Yep.
as long as possible
Yep.
so they can keep making money off of you. And I hate to say that that's why, but I really believe that is it. You got to follow the
Well,
money.
that's
Mm,
that's it. If the government is, making money off of these big companies, big box
mhm,
companies,
mhm,
and
mhm.
also they're making money from the pharmaceutical companies, then why should they make a change? It's still people's
Exactly.
choice. It's still their choice to do it, right?
Right.
If you have your due diligence to research what's good for your body, and it's up to that person to make a change.
Yeah,
And if you're not proactive with it,
it
and
is.
if you're okay with your life being the way that it is right now, then
Hmm.
more power to you. But if you're not going to do your own research and what's really good for your body, then you're
Yeah.
not giving yourself any justice. If you're just
That is
gonna
so true.
if you're just gonna follow what the government's saying, how many times has the government been wrong about anything? Right? How many times have
Wait
been
a
have,
bit.
maybe the question is how many times have they changed the pyramid? I think they changed it recently with fat,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And I think
They did
it's
actually.
right.
And yeah, at least here, at least in North America. That World Economic Forum, that is not, they didn't elevate fat. If you look at that chart that I sent you,
Hmm.
I want to say that chart is like 80% plus all carbohydrate. And the meat part of that is almost nothing. I want to say the meat on that little chart that they just published is probably 5% or less. And they don't even recommend fat other than fatty fish. It's so wrong. And I do feel sorry. Like for people that have to do their own research, right? For me, I feel like this information was out there. I think the Atkins diet was published in the 70s, right? So the Atkins diet is similar to keto. Um, and even going back before that, if you go back to even the 1800s, doctors used to tell people to lose weight by cutting out bread and starch. And this information really has been there forever. The keto diet was developed, I want to say either in the 1960s or 70s to treat
Hmm.
epilepsy. So children that had epilepsy, it was developed by the Mayo Clinic. They put them on this high fat, low carb diet, and they had a huge success rate in preventing seizures in children. That's where the keto diet came from. At the time, it wasn't promoted as a way to lose weight, but it corrected or, contributed to helping children that were born with epilepsy. Now it's used to treat a various range. I've even heard success with children that have autism eating a low carb diet.
Hmm.
And I think it's early research still, but it's hard for people to find this information. It
Yep.
really is.
Yep.
If you look at your traditional sources and even talk to your doctor, most of them are not going to tell you to eat a low carb, high fat diet because the doctors, they kind of just spit out what they learn in medical school. And medical school really talks very little about nutrition. It's almost non-existent. And if
Yep.
you talk to dietitians, they are taught low fat, high carb diet to recommend people. So the way that we educate people is flawed. So it's really difficult for people to find this information. It really is. And then let alone trust it. So that's why I feel like this is more kind of like a grassroots effort, trying to put this out there. But I do believe more people are finding this way of eating. They get frustrated like I was. And they're looking for something different. They give up. The low fat diet, 98% failure rate. So that's basically proven to fail. It's a proven failure method, but it's still recommended. And it kind of it makes me angry and passionate to try to get this information out there. That's why I wanted to talk to you today. I've been down this journey for a couple of years, and the more I find, the more I know this is the right way to go. And if you look at my Twitter handle, it's a keto for life. To me, this isn't a diet anymore. And I know people have talked about even on low fat diets, oh, it's a lifestyle.
Hmm.
Yeah, it is a lifestyle. But this diet for me is just the way I eat. I've learned this diet. I don't even really think about eating any other way. I don't. It's just the way I eat. It's the food I buy. I just go to the store and I buy the right food. A lot of meat, a lot of fish, eggs, avocados, vegetables. I eat berries, which are low glycemic. So, and you're allowed some carbohydrate. You just have to choose where you want to spend it. Raspberries, blueberries, blackberries are really good. I mix that in with like Greek yogurt, unsweetened Greek yogurt. It tastes great. That would be a typical dessert. And there's even recipes out there for cheesecake that taste exactly like the real thing, other than the
Right.
crust is a little different. Oh my God. So you don't really even have to give anything up. It's just
Exactly.
substituting. It's
Exactly.
amazing.
To
Yeah.
me, I love hamburgers. It's like a religion to me, and and there are lots of types of bread out there that you Burger Priest. Do you guys have Burger Priest in Chicago?
No, I haven't seen it. We have
It,
Butterburger though.
they have keto buns, and
No
and you
way.
can buy keto buns
Yes,
and just get it and then buy it from your favorite
you
burger
can.
joint. It's so
Totally.
there's so many ways that you could make something
Yeah,
up. Uh,
absolutely. There's a pizza place, a chain near me that sells a keto crust. And
Amazing.
yeah, and it's a chain. I'm trying to remember, I don't remember the name of it, but I've had it before. It tastes exactly the same as regular pizza. It's really good. So, pizza, burger,
Mhm.
cheesecake, like, I
Mhm.
mean, and there's recipes out there that I
Yep.
found. If you really want to have, satisfy your sweet tooth, there's ways of doing it without throwing your, insulin levels off and keeping you in ketosis. Like, when you eat foods, again, you produce insulin. So I think your body, um, it becomes metabolically flexible. And I think that it just is what we as humans are meant to be. We're meant to be this way. If we're not meant to stuff food in our faces all day long. We've inherited the DNA of our ancestors that goes back hundreds of thousands of years. And we can't change that in, 50 years or however long we've been pushing high carb diet. So, we are who we evolved from, which is basically, maybe you're not eating 4 or 5 meals a day. Maybe it's one or two. And you're probably eating, what is natural, real food. You're eating meat, you're eating vegetables, you're eating berries, maybe seasonal fruits. Um, and I got to tell you, one of the things that I was scared of that I'd mentioned earlier is eating a high fat diet. One of the things that was very eye-opening to me is I really don't have to add extra fat to my diet. I don't have to. I mean, sometimes I do put MCT oil in my coffee when you talk about
Oh,
keto.
isn't that the best?
It tastes so good. I do it because I like how it tastes.
Yeah,
But I got to
exactly.
tell you, eating natural, real food is all you have to do. You don't have to go out of your way to make sure you're
So
eating extra
simple.
fat. It's real food, right? So the typical breakdown for keto, at least that the way that I eat, is about 70% fat,
Mhm.
20% protein, and 10% carbs. So that's basically your kind of macro nutrient breakdown. So those three things. And I was really nervous about starting the diet because I was afraid of trying to hit those numbers or getting close to it. But you don't have to really go out of your way and try. You just select real, natural, whole food and you eat it. And the macros naturally break down that way. That's what food is, basically. And I think, the high fat concept or, of what keto is might scare people away, but it really is just eating real food. That's it. You get rid of the processed junk, don't eat the carbs, get rid of the bread, but there's also keto bread alternatives out there. It's actually not that difficult to stay on this diet, and the food is so filling and so satisfying. You're not hungry all day long. You don't want to keep shoving food in your mouth. You're satisfied,
Exactly.
and yeah, you naturally eat less, I think. I don't even count calories at all. The calories in, calories out model is completely flawed. Uh, and there's science behind that too. So the way your body would process, like if you drank a 40-ounce Coca-Cola, is a lot different than if you ate an 8-ounce steak. So when you have something that has a lot of chemicals and sugar in it, your body doesn't necessarily know how to process that food. And it overcompensates, with insulin. Versus if you eat a steak, you will still release insulin, but it's going to probably only be a fraction of the amount that if you ate junk food. So it's just eating real whole food. That's it. And,
That's
and
it's simple. It's simple. And maybe it's because some people find, after a couple of weeks with starting the diet, they find themselves in the keto flu, and maybe they don't know what's going on, and it's your body basically saying, hey, you're depleting me
Yeah.
of the energy source that which is carbs, and now it's your body transitioning into a new energy source, which is fat. So what would you tell people about, how to get over that hump?
So, I fortunately didn't suffer necessarily a flu. However, I did have to battle my, wanting to eat carbs. And I want to say for me, that lasted about 2 weeks. I did have a headache, so that maybe that's, kind of part of that
Mm-hmm.
process, detoxing and your body switching. So, my whole life I ate a high carb diet and switching energy. I do feel like that is part of the process, but I also don't want people to be scared of that because, for me, you just have to kind of barrel through it. You just get through. It affects people differently. It's 1 or 2 weeks. It was about 2 weeks for me, and you're done. You're through it, and you just have to keep reinforcing this new way of eating. We are programmed to switch between burning carbohydrate and burning ketones for energy. Our bodies have it's in us.
Mm-hmm.
Again, going back to how we evolved. We can do this, and we're supposed to be doing this, and it keeps you healthy. So I would tell people it's worth it. Trust the process. Do a lot of research. Read stories about other people. Listen to podcasts like this, and do it. Just do it. You
I,
have nothing to lose other than, maybe losing some body fat and gaining your health back.
I love that. I love that. And I have a lot of reading to do. I love all of your suggestions, and I think, guys, if you're listening right now, go back and write down those titles, and I think, you know, that has a lot of value. That could help you get over that hump, right? And
It totally does.
there's so many things here. I'm so glad I came across your page,
Sure.
and where can people find you?
So I'm on Twitter. My handle is keto_life. So that's where I post a lot, and I also retweet.
Mm.
I have found a lot of doctors and people of authority, dietitians that have discovered this way of eating that I follow. So, there you can find a lot of information on my page.
Thank you so much for coming on, Jen. I really appreciate
Thank
you.
you, Lauren. Yeah, I
Thank
wish
you
you
so
luck with
much.
this podcast.
You have just heard my conversation with Jen. If you want to get notified when we upload a new episode, subscribe today.